This Marina Life with MDL Marinas.
It's time for another episode of This Marina Life from MDL Marinas with me, the marine podcaster, Kerry Hurford-Jones. In the next 30 minutes, we'll find out how to navigate your first boat purchase with some great hints and tips from some of our resident experts who both operate boat broker operations in MDL Marinas. First up today is Chris Manners from TBS Boats, a company who have sold literally thousands of boats, both on the Thames and the South Coast. Chris is a boat owner himself and a qualified yachtmaster offshore. He continues to enjoy boating both on the inland waterways and at sea. I began by asking him what people should look out for when they're buying their first motorboat.
What we always say to our clients when they're looking for the first time is to try and determine exactly what you want to do with the boat. It's very important to, decide if it's coastal cruising, river cruising, with the family, at speed, going slow on canals. And so come in with a list of what you think you want to do with it. And from there we can guide you whether you need twin engine, single engine, electric, diesel, petrol, and just it's a good starting point. Otherwise you come in looking at hundreds and hundreds of boats through brokers and not knowing where to start.
And what is the market like for motorboats at the moment, Chris?
It's okay. We had some bumpy years of selling boats during COVID. The market tailed off towards the end of last year. That was pretty predominantly down to weather, we think. It rained pretty much most of 2024. So a lot of clients weren't buying boats, they were buying caravans. But since the sun's been shining the last 2 weeks, we've picked up and the market's got very busy again. But also, boats are coming back on the market. A lot of COVID purchasers are now selling again. So you have a good selection of stock available.
Now, when you're out there in the marketplace looking to buy a motorboat, how on earth do you choose from the plethora of boats available to you, left, right and centre?
There is a lot out there. The first thing I would say always use a qualified yacht broker. Make sure the broker is part of British Marine and also part of ABIA, the Association of Brokers and Yacht Agents. We are qualified in what we do and we are there to help you, steer you through the myriad of questions and things that pop up along their way. And by using a qualified broker, it'll cut all of your time down in searching for a boat, because we'll be able to guide you in a different way that you can on Google search and just starting from afresh. So always use a proper broker, because they will guide you all the way through the process.
Now, finance is clearly a key to all of this. We all have dreams and aspirations, and then the reality of the bank balance kicks in. What financial options are there available for buyers at the moment?
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's a few lenders out there. I could name 3 straight away, all very well established. You can get an 80% LTV, loan to value, on most lenders. The rates are obviously a bit high at the moment because of what's happening with interest rates generally, but you should be able to secure an 80% loan to value at about 9% upward scale from there, but starting at about 9%.
And as you say, you've got to take into account the whole range of costs to go with owning a boat. Clearly with motorboats you've got the fuel costs, but then there's berthing costs. There's quite a number of things that you need to consider. Quite a spreadsheet, in fact, of costs that need to be taken into account when you're buying.
Yes, indeed, yeah. You've got to make sure you have a complete spreadsheet. And again, a good broker will often give you that. It's a tick list of things you should account for and budget for in your process and your search. And that will be all of it, from servicing, berthing, insuring, finance, general running costs, lifting, servicing, engines, anti-fouling, everything will be covered on the list. And we try and make you aware of that at the very early stages of your search, so there's no surprises later.
And for those with a slightly smaller boat aspiration, there's a huge range, as we talked about earlier, but there's also, of course, options now for berthing, including dry stack availability. That's quite a novelty, isn't it? It's quite an interesting way of actually keeping a boat safe and secure when you're not using it.
It is indeed, yeah, very popular, especially on the south coast. It keeps it nice and clean. You give them a call on a Friday, throw it in the water, boating for a couple of days and back out again. So yes, that's something that's taken over in the last few years, and it's actually coming to the River Thames now as well, because when the Thames floods, you haven't got the worry of the river going up and down, a boat tied to a fixed pontoon. So yes, popular thing.
I hadn't thought about that. Really good point. So let's look now at some of the common mistakes you come across in your many years of doing this, Chris. The kind of mistakes that a first-time buyer might make.
Okay, yeah, so there's so many. It's literally led by confusion, really, of not knowing what you want to buy, so you often buy the wrong thing. And that shows itself in the power source quite often, because your first time boat, you think you want to do everything, which is rivers, coastals, French waterways, the Mediterranean, and you try and buy the one boat that fits all of those ways of doing it. The reality is, your very first boat, you'll often start with buying the wrong boat, if I'm honest. But in 12, 18 months, you learn so much, and you could often then come back and you've learned so much in that time to buy the boat that does all the other options. So again, listen to the broker. He will guide you from his experience and try and stop you falling into those pitfalls of buying the wrong things.
But we're all led by a dream, Chris, often by the heart and not by the head.
Indeed. And that's what we're here for, to try and talk you out of that and guide you. There's lots of boats to choose from, and often it really comes down to the budget and what you ultimately want to do with it in the sunshine when you go cruising. But you're often led by budget to start with, of course, because that's the biggest factor.
And being a boat owner yourself, it must be quite interesting when you go into the marketplace to buy your own boat.
Yes, and I fully understand how it works for buyers. It's a very nerve-wracking experience buying a boat, and especially if you're buying a new one, kitting it out, choosing the colours, making sure it's right for you and the family, and obviously rigidity when you come to sell it in the future. So there's a lot to take on board, and we always, when we're at exhibitions selling new boats, say to the customers, look, we agree a specification, we go through it, but take it away for 24 hours and think about it to make sure you don't have buyer's remorse, and you know you're buying the right boat for you and the family before we commit and go forward. And I think that's something I've learned over the years, that you can get very carried away, especially at exhibitions. But, go home, think, and then it's amazing how over the night you'll think of different things you want to specify on that new boat, and things change.
Really good advice. Now, when it comes to a motorboat particularly, I'm thinking now about the inspection, about the survey, because the boat, the hull and all the rest of it, that's quite clearly needs to be inspected, needs to be surveyed. But what about the engines, the critical factor on a motorboat? How do you go out inspecting and actually ensuring that those are right for the boat and for you?
So we always recommend you have a survey. I would not buy a boat if you didn't have a survey. It's one of those things where the surveyor is independent, he's working for you, and he will check that boat from stem to stern on obviously all the structural side of the vessel, but also you can ask them to do engine checks as well. So they do many things. So a surveyor will do what he can see on the engines. He'll run them, test them, often put them under load. You can also employ a marine engineer to do an oil analysis to check the engine in deeper depth to safeguard your investment and make sure there's nothing that none of us can see. So full survey and mechanical survey is always good advice.
Now, the next question, Chris, is how long is a piece of string? What sort of costs is an engineer charging these days for that kind of survey?
It's not too bad. A single engine, a qualified marine engineer would charge you probably about £300 to £400 to do an engine survey on an internal engine. A bit more for twin engine. It wouldn't be double because they're next to each other and he's on board. Outboards are a lot cheaper. So it's not too bad for the investment you're making. It's money well spent.
Yeah, that's the point. When you're kind of spending this sort of money we're talking about here, that's actually 0.1% of the actual purchase price, and it's probably the best 0.1% you're ever going to spend.
Absolutely. And when it goes wrong, you'll be really grateful that when you had that, because also you can take out warranties as well. If you had it surveyed and the boat has a full service history, you can actually take warranties against engines and other things. So if you did have a catastrophic failure, you could be covered under a warranty.
So let's talk about the actual decision-making process going on between new and used. There's clearly a lead time on the new one, but it's not being used by anybody else. Then there's the used, which is the question of how used is it? There's some really tough old questions there to try and reach some conclusions over.
There are indeed. Lead time is the biggest one, because obviously if you're buying a new boat and having it built to your specification, that's a process of time, and that can take months or years even. So that's the biggest consideration. But once you've got through that, the beauty of buying a new boat is that you can choose your colours, the layouts, the specification, what's fitted to the boat, and more importantly, you get a full warranty. So a new boat comes with a manufacturer's warranty through the distributor, the dealer, the broker, on engine and vessel itself of 2 years and sometimes 3. So that's good for peace of mind and if you don't want the aggravation of anything breaking. Second-hand, pre-owned, Yes, you'll have a survey, yes, you'll have a mechanical survey, but there is no warranty. You're buying through a broker and he's acting as the agent between the buyer and the seller. So always bear in mind that buying second hand, if you don't have it checked properly, if something goes wrong, it's down to your expense.
Some valuable food for thought there. Yeah, thanks for that, Chris. So as we reach the end of today's episode, let's just have a little review here of one or two things to just remind ourselves of the sort of key elements, the key advice you'd give someone buying a boat for the first time.
Okay. Again, you've heard me say it a few times through this podcast. Use a broker, use a broker. That's the most important thing. A broker is there to protect you for clear title documents, VAT, service records, everything relating to a purchase of a boat. The broker is there to help you all the way through.
Succinct and to the point. And finally, please just remind us about your business, where you're based and how people can get hold of you.
Yeah, sure. So we are TBS Boats of tbsboats.com. We are based on the River Thames in Chertsey in Surrey and also on the River Hamble at Mercury Marina, which are both MDL sites. And we've been lucky enough to be an MDL tenant for, as I say, 27 years. So here to help whenever we can.
I'm now joined by Bill Stringer, the Managing Director of Key Yachting, a brokerage firm based at MDL's Hamble Point Marina. Key Yachting principally focuses on sailing boats and represents 4 brands: J, Grand Soleil, Tofino and Nautatech catamarans. They have a really diverse range of customers, including racers, cruisers and around-the-world trippers, to name but a few. I started our chat by asking him for some of the key factors that people need to consider when they're choosing their first sailing boat.
We spend a lot of time with clients working through this with them, and it's about asking what kind of sailing you're doing. Are you doing racing around the Solent? Is it club racing? Are you cruising across the channel? Considering a transatlantic trip or even around the world trip with your family, and we have that full range of customer that we work with. Also, who are you doing it with? Is it with your significant other, your young family, your growing family? Is it with your mates? Is it with a professional crew? Who you're doing it with is really important. Things like budget is obviously important. Understanding what you have for the initial purchase, and then of course it's the ongoing cost. Parking a boat and not going anywhere can cost quite a lot of money in its own right. Ongoing maintenance, how competitive you want to be. All of those factors are really, really important for us as brokers to understand, so that we can match you up with the right type of boat, the right type of model, the right age of boat, etc., etc.
Whenever you're buying a boat, it's always a bit of compromise, because this is a big purchase. No matter what level you're going in at, you want to get it right, don't you?
Absolutely. And for many, and I can understand why, it's something you've been dreaming of for potentially many, many years. So it's really important to do your research and to talk widely and get on the internet, look out for owners groups, talk to brokers and do your research. I will say though that at some point do make a decision, because you're not here forever. So, make sure you deliver on your dream that you've always been thinking about.
And as I said, it is a degree of compromises as well, of course, between the reality of life versus our dreams. But how do you at Key Yachting actually help clients decide between what is effectively a brand new, squeaky clean, never been used boat and something that's perhaps been round the cans a few times?
Budget is a big part of that question. So understanding how much you have available to buy your boat. I think also, are you looking for the latest gadgets and technology in your boat? Boats have changed over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years quite dramatically. So are you looking for that cutting edge, the latest model? And things like warranty, how important is warranty and hassle-free sailing? How important is that to you? Are you up for the maintenance of an older boat? A lot of people like messing about with boats, but the majority of us want to get out there sailing. So do you want to be varnishing wooden decks all summer and all winter, or do you want to be out there sailing? So all of those factors are really important in that new versus used boat consideration.
Yeah, some really good points you make there, Bill. And of course, the one that's going to come over the top of all of that is the cost, because it's a fairly major differential, isn't there, between brand new boat versus one that's 5, 6, 7, 10 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. As with many things in life today, the cost of new boats has gone up quite dramatically over the last few years, and so you just need to bear that in mind in terms of your affordability.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at some of the pitfalls, some of the obvious things in your experience that you've come across that buyers need to avoid when they're buying their very first yacht.
Yeah, I think probably the number one thing to really focus on is the ongoing costs of owning a boat. So where are you going to keep the boat? Is it going to be on a watershore marina? Is it going to be on a river mooring? Is it going to be on your driveway for some of the smaller boats? So and things like ongoing maintenance. So how old is the engine? Does the standing rigging need changing? Do you need a new set of sails? All of those factors really need to be understood well and if we will help clients through that process, giving them an understanding of those factors. So that can really help with their decision making. I think the other couple of factors that are important is that some people will go into a process of buying a boat thinking this is the only boat they buy. There's a good argument to perhaps buying something maybe a bit smaller or something more within your budget rather than going too big and too wild, because that's what you eventually may end up with. The market for used boats is very buoyant, so it needn't be your forever boat. Maybe step into the process and get an understanding of what you're getting into. Also, your situation changes in terms of your maybe your health or your age, or you may have young kids today, but in 10, 15 years' time, they'll be a lot bigger than they are today. So all of those factors are really important.
Yeah, I think you, again, make some really good points there, Bill, about the stepping stones to yacht ownership. It can be a rocky road, depending on the experiences you have, and this is where having a trusted friend, having somebody you can rely on, somebody you can build a relationship with is so important, that you can trust, isn't it?
And it really is, and we spend a lot of time getting to understand our clients, because it's an important process, and we want people to have the best sailing experience that they can have. Of course, we would want them to come back for another boat in a few years' time. So all of that is really important for us to build that relationship. And you want to be working with a broker that's honest, that has good access to some really fabulous brands, has some credibility, has been around for some time, knows the business essentially.
And surveys, inspections, massively important, of course. You're laying out a fair amount of cash here into this purchase. It's really important that it comes with the paperwork to support it. The life of the boat, of course, is important if you're buying a used boat. What's sort of involved in a survey? Give us a sort of a quick précis.
Essentially, the process is, if you see a boat and you make an offer and that's accepted, you typically will make an offer like you would with a house purchase, an offer subject to survey. And at that point, you commission a surveyor. Your broker should be able to give you some guidance as to surveyors that are in your locality. I would suggest that they give you maybe 2 or 3 options, because this is your survey. It's very much an independent process. So you're engaging with the surveyor. So what would typically happen then, if the boat is currently in the water, you would arrange for the boat to be lifted, and all of these costs, the surveyor and the lift costs, these are all up to you as a buyer. So you are making a certain amount of commitment into the process. The surveyor would then do a number of different checks. Could be 2, 3, 4 hours of checking over the boat, and they'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb. And I think probably the key things they're looking for are very much around the structure of the hull, to ensure that's completely sound for you. They'll highlight areas where some immediate work is needed, and quite often they'll flag that up as maybe a red point, and then maybe an amber point is work that needs to be done in the next 2 to 3 years, and then green is more of an advisory point. So using a traffic light system. So you are then armed with all of this information about the state of the boat. And of course with sailing boats, things like the standing rigging, so shrouds and forestays, and the mast and the boom, they're really important factors because they have a finite lifetime and can incur some considerable costs if needs to be replaced in the future. So working very closely with your surveyor, probing them and really asking the detailed questions will mean that when you go into the final process of completing the purchase, you're well armed. And it could be that some of the things that were highlighted could be a point of negotiation. Again, much like a house survey. So it's really important to engage with a professional surveyor who does a detailed and thorough job so that you're well armed going into that final part of the process.
Let's have a little look at the last question today, because time is ticking rapidly past. Is a couple of key pointers from you, Bill, as to advice you'd give to somebody who's considering buying a yacht for the first time.
Number one, really try to understand what type of sailing you want to do. You may have fabulous ambitions to be trotting the Atlantic, but really quiz that and test that, because that's a very different boat to pottering around the Solent. Number two, really understand the ongoing costs, because they can be significant. And number three, get to know your broker and build some trust and relationship in the broker.
Really sound advice, Bill. I really appreciate everything you've given us, all the heads up and information. Just remind us again, if you will, as to where you are and how people can make contact with your company.
Yes, absolutely. We're Key Yachting. We're based down here at the MDL Marina at Hamble Point. And our range, just as a reminder, is the J Performance Cruising racing boats, Nautatech catamarans, Grand Soleil Performance Cruisers, and the Toffanu day boats. So please do come and get in contact with us, and we can help you through this process.
As always, a huge thank you to all my guests for giving up their time. I hope you found what they had to say both inspiring and informative. For more information on those featured in this episode, just follow the links on the show notes. MDL Marinas have 18 UK marinas in prime boating locations, all offering a wide range of berthing options, from dry stack to pontoon berthing with inclusive visitor nights or simply a home berth. To find out more, just click on the link in the show notes and join us again soon for more This Marina Life podcasts from MDL Marinas.